The second thing, and something that Huggy and I have written a lot about, is sometimes we call scaling the problem of more, because when you're scaling, like you got something good, you're spreading it to more places, to more people, you're trying to grow Pulse, you're trying to open more McDonald's or more In-N-Out burgers. But the other thing that we emphasize is scaling is actually a problem of less as well, because there are a whole bunch of things that, well, maybe used to work and don't work anymore and you got rid of them. And there also might be things you've always done that actually slow you down, you don't realize it. So to give you a few illustrations, I did not think I would live long enough to see the President of the United States fire the CEO of General Motors, but I did live that long. And when Obama fired the CEO of General Motors, he brought in a guy named Ed Whitacre, who was CEO of AT&T. The video's on, but it doesn't matter. As a taxpayer, I've given enough money to General Motors, I can say this. So there were a group of us in our department who worked with the General Motors R&D organization for about 7 or 8 years. And any time we came up with an idea about how they actually had to make things better, they had what we called the no, we can't mindset. And the reason was almost always because that's a good idea, but it's too difficult to do because. And one of the reasons was they always had to write reports. And I was pleased to see that Ed Whitacre, you can see, sort of made this little change going from 94 to 4 required reports. We actually are going to have some General Motors senior executives here next week who Huggy and I are going to meet with. And I'm going to be really curious to see what happens, because my goal is to give them as much grief as possible and see if they're making any progress. Anyway, an organization I have a long-standing both love and hate for. An organization I have only long-standing love for is IDEO. And IDEO I've known for a long time. In the mid-90s, one of my former doctoral students, Andy Hargadon, and I did a 15-month, 16-month ethnography there. We really hung out a long time. And in those days, they had about 60 people. And the guy in the middle with the mustache, that's David Kelly. That's what he used to look like. He's always been bald. Unlike me in some of my earlier talks, I'm actually not bald in this seminar. But in those days, there'd be about 60 people in Palo Alto at the Monday morning meeting. And David was absolutely masterful. He'd start out with a joke or a story. The thing that he usually started out in those days, he wasn't married. He'd usually talk about the bad date he had over the weekend, so that sort of warmed everybody up. And then he'd go around the room and he'd get just about everybody to talk, or he'd say something about you. So we were the ethnographers, and he would say, they're watching you. They're writing down everything you say. We've got spies, in which actually we were writing down everything they said to the extent we could. And one of the things that we wrote down was this notion that almost everybody would talk and participate, because we'd record comments and count and stuff. Then IDEO grew to about 150 people. And I remember going to this Monday morning meeting sort of towards the end. It was absolute hell. It just did not work. They reached a scale where what got them there won't get them the next level.